They called it the Blind Expanse. Not because it was dark. Space is always dark. They called it blind because every ship that entered it came back wrong, if it came back at all. Yang crews tore out their own eyes to stop seeing what waited between the stars. Captains forgot their own names while still giving orders. Navigators wrote impossible equations in their own blood across bulkheads, then begged to be spaced before the walls started bending again. Entire empires marked the region in forbidden frequencies and dead languages, warning every sane species to stay away. Humanity mapped it, and the man who led that mission almost lost everything that made him human to do it. In the year 1919, when the Terran Compact had spread across 23 settled systems and 2 bitter frontier wars had finally gone cold, Commander Elias Vance stood inside the observation blister of the Pathfinder vessel Argosy and watched the Blind Expanse swallow starlight. At first glance, it looked empty. That was the first lie. The edge of the region hung ahead of them like a wound in the night, a volume of space where stars bent around nothing and light seemed reluctant to cross. On the tactical display, it was a ragged sphere nearly 12 light-years across, floating beyond the Perseus Drift, a zone that no member species of the Orion League would approach under any circumstance. Vance kept his hands clasped behind his back so the bridge crew would not see the tremor in them. He was 52 years old, broad-shouldered, gray starting to spread through his black hair at the temples. A man who had crossed war zones, asteroid sieges, and famine corridors, and who had learned the hard lesson that courage usually meant moving while afraid. He had commanded refugee escorts through pirate killboxes and once held a fractured moonport with 400 Marines against an enemy that outnumbered him 7-1. None of that helped him here. Because he had seen the Blind Expanse before, not with his own eyes. Through the final logs of his wife, Dr. Mara Vance had been chief cyno-neurologist aboard the research cruiser Halcyon 6 years earlier, attached to a joint mission with the Kepri Concorde. They had gone to study the edge phenomena from a safe distance. Their mission files had returned to Earth compressed, corrupted, and soaked in screams. The Halcyon itself drifted back 3 months later, on emergency autopilot, every corridor painted with equations no software could parse, every system clock set to different dates, every member of the crew dead except Mara. She had lived for 11 minutes after recovery, long enough to look at Elias through the medbay glass with terrified recognition, long enough to whisper, "Do not let it learn your shape." Then she died seizing, with brain scans that looked less like neural tissue and more like storm fronts over shattered continents. That sentence had never left him. Now he was taking another ship into the dark she had feared, not for revenge, not exactly. The Argosy had been built for one purpose: Pathfinder class. Black hull, modular sensor spines, redundant guidance arrays, sealed rotational habitat ring, and a human neural architecture in the helm systems that the League had called reckless and barbaric. Human ships still relied on people where older species increasingly trusted consensus AIs and reflex lattices. The League saw it as primitive. After the third alien expedition to the Blind Expanse dissolved into madness, they saw it as the only reason the Terran Compact might have a chance. Admiral Sloan had put it plainly before departure. Every species that evolved in stable worlds breaks in there, she had told him across the secure briefing table on Luna. Too much pattern sensitivity, too much dependence on cognitive equilibrium. Human neurology is uglier, more redundant, more contradictory. We compartmentalize the stress. We keep functioning while damaged. Sometimes that's our curse. This time it might be our advantage. Might, Vance had said. Sloan had slid a crystal wafer across the table. Inside it were the dead mission records of the Telari, the Sen, the Vey, and the Kepri. Find a roll through it. Find out what it is. And if there's intelligence inside, determine whether it can spread. That last part had chilled him. Because the League had begun to fear the Blind Expanses was not a place. On the bridge, Lieutenant Nadia Orlov broke the silence. Approach marker reached, Commander. Vance turned from the blister. Orlov sat at navigation, compact and sharp-eyed, her auburn hair braided tight against the back of her collar. 34. When Vance asked why, she had said, "Because if something can break minds, I want to know how far mine bends before it snaps." At Tactical stood Major Isaac Mercer, Marine Detachment Commander. A slab of a man with calm hands and a voice like gravel dragged over steel. Beside him, Chief Systems Engineer Riku Tanaka monitored power distribution with the patient focus of a watchmaker. In the science pit, Dr. Celine Batt, Sena mathematician, leaned over data streams with an expression too hungry to be called fear. And at the auxiliary command station sat the least human member of the crew, Lore. Kebri Itachi from the Orient League, 3 meters of amber chitin and folded forelimbs, with luminous nodal eyes buried in a fan-shaped crown. His species processed geometry the way humans processed language. To them, spatial relations were instinctive, beautiful, sacred. The Blind Expanse had murdered more Kebri minds than any other species. Lore had volunteered anyway. Perhaps volunteered was the wrong word. He had been the only survivor of the Halcyon's Kebri contingent. Survivor in the legal sense, not in the spiritual one. He moved slowly now, spoke in careful segments, avoided reflective surfaces, kept a cloth wrapped around 2 of his hand claws because he had once carved spirals into his own shell during a night terror and did not remember doing it. He was also the only person on the Argosy who knew what Mara Vance's last weeks had looked like. "Commander," Lore said, his translator giving his clicking tones a low metallic resonance. "The local metric distortions are increasing. The boundary is attentive." No one answered that. Attentive was not a scientific term, but the bridge had already learned that strict vocabulary broke down near the expanse. Vance settled into the command chair. "Status." Orlov exhaled through her nose. "Primary nav is still coherent. Beacons 1 through 6 are active and transmitting back on entangled relay. No lag." Hot spoke without looking up. "Spectral scan remains inconsistent with vacuum. The region is emitting low-frequency structure that should not exist in open space. It resembles folded topology." "English, Doctor." She looked up. "Space in there is not behaving like distance. It's behaving like memory," Mercer muttered. "I liked it better when the enemy just shot at us." A few people smiled at that. Thin smiles. The kind soldiers use because the alternative is silence. Vance keyed shipwide. "All hands, this is the commander. We are crossing threshold in 2 minutes. Critical ash becomes active on my mark. No one moves unpaired, no one remains unwatched. If you experience visual distortion, déjà vu, auditory anomalies, missing time, or intrusive ideation, report immediately. There is no shame in impairment. Hiding symptoms endangers the ship. We go in together and we come out together." He released the channel. Then, quieter, to the bridge. "Take us in." The first thing that changed was sound, not outside. Inside the ship. The hum of the reactor deepened half a tone, then split into a layered vibration that seemed to come from the deck, the air, and somewhere inside Vance's teeth. Warning panels flickered but showed no fault. The stars ahead stretched into pale threads. Orlov's fingers danced over the helm. Boundary crossing now. The second thing that changed was time, not by clocks, by sensation. A heartbeat felt too long. A blink felt delayed. When Vance turned his head, motion seemed to arrive a fraction after the decision to move. He heard someone inhale on the bridge and realized it had been him. Then the stars vanished. Not all at once. They simply ceased to make sense. The forward display still showed points of light, but their arrangement would not stay fixed. Constellations twisted when no one looked directly at them. Distances on the tactical sphere altered by decimal places every second. Knee contact appeared behind them, then above them, then impossibly inside their projected path before resolving into empty space. "Telemetry is drifting," Tanaka said. "No," Bat whispered. "Telemetry is arguing." Vance felt cold sweat under his collar. "Orlov? You still have a vector," she said, too quickly. Mostly. There are 6 valid routes and none of them match each other." Mercer said. "That's not a route. That's my point." The bridge lights dimmed by 3%, not enough to trigger alarm, enough that everyone noticed. Lower made a low clicking sound. Do not permit your eyes to settle. Static focus increases recursive perception. Mercer looked at him. In soldier language, Lore's nodal eyes tightened. Do not stare. That became the law of the next 2 hours. No one stared at the displays. No one looked too long into corners. Crew moved in practice pairs, speaking constantly, confirming names, roles, dates, and locations. Memory drills pulsed through the internal comms every 15 minutes. State your name. State your post. State what happened 1 minute ago. State what happened 1 year ago. Vance listened to those voices and held the line in his own mind. Ilias Vance. Commander. Bridge. Mara is dead. At 100-200 shipboard, the first serious incident hit. Deck 7 maintenance called in a pressure alarm near coolant manifold C. Mercer took 2 Marines and headed down himself. Vance watched through internal cams as they reached the corridor. Frost sheeted one wall. The hatch to manifold C stood open. Inside, Petty Officer Lena Cho crouched by the coolant valve, helmet off, lips moving soundlessly. "Cho," Mercer said over comms. "Report." She did not react. The Marine to his left, Hubble, stepped forward. Petty Officer, stand fast. Cho turned slowly. Her face was wet with tears. In her right hand, she held a cutting torch. "She says she can hear children," Mercer said quietly. On the bridge, Vance sat forward. "There are no children aboard." "I know that, sir." Cho lifted the torch toward the dark inside the manifold chamber. "They're trapped in the walls," she whispered. Mercer stopped moving. "Lena, look at me." "No," she said. "Lena, there's nothing in there." She laughed then, a raw broken sound. "That's what it wants you to think." Her eyes slid past him towards something unseen. "Mara?" The bridge went dead still. Vance felt the blood leave his face. Mercer heard it too. He glanced at the nearest ham, and for a single instant Vance thought the Major might turn toward it. Toward him. Toward the impossible name hanging in the air. Instead, Mercer lowered his rifle and stepped closer. Ho's grip trembled. "She's asking for help." "No," Mercer said. "Something learned a word that hurts your commander, and it put that word inside your head." "That is not the same thing." Ko began to sob. Mercer continued forward, one slow step at a time. "You know me, Lena. Look at my face. Say my name." Her mouth worked. "Major, Mercer." "That's right. I'm real. The wall is not. Give me the torch." For 3 long seconds she held it. Then her arm sagged. Mercer took the tool and signaled the corpsman. The pressure alarm was false. There had never been any leak. But when they scanned the compartment wall, they found shallow burn marks in a rough child-sized outline. Bat requested access to every sensor reading from the incident. Vance denied her for 10 seconds. Not because he did not trust her. Because he needed 10 seconds to get Mara's name out of his breathing before it cracked the bridge in half. By the 5th hour inside the Expanse, things got worse. The ship's external beacons were no longer staying where they had been deployed. Instruments insisted Beacon 2 was ahead of them, then behind them, then older than it should have been by 12 hours. Beacon 4 transmitted a copy of Orlov's voice giving helm corrections she had not spoken yet. Beacon 6 started returning telemetry from a region of space the Argosy had not entered. Tanaka isolated the data stream and swore softly. "It's not corruption," he said. "The beacon clocks are desynchronized in impossible ways. We may be receiving our own future packets." "Can we use them?" Vance asked. "Would you trust weather reports from tomorrow if tomorrow is drunk?" But did, or tried to. She spent an hour cross-referencing the future telemetry with their current distortions, muttering to herself, eyes red from strain. Finally, she looked up with a kind of fierce wonder. "It isn't random," she said. "None of this is random. The geometry is adaptive." Mercer folded his arms. Adaptive to what? To observers. A silence followed. Bat rose and walked into the center of the bridge, speaking faster now, as if afraid the thought would escape before she could trap it. Every League expedition relied heavily on non-biological navigation, meshes, and predictive spatial models. They assumed the Expanse was a physical anomaly, but the data from their breakdowns shows the environment became more unstable as their systems imposed firmer interpretations. They tried to force the region into a coherent map. It responded by increasing contradiction. Lore shifted uneasily. "It rejects certainty." Pot nodded. "Or feeds on it. Human cognition is different. We tolerate unresolved conflict better than most species. We can carry incompatible ideas longer without neurological collapse. That may be why we're still functioning." Mercer gave a humorless smile. "So the secret strategy is being stubborn apes, possibly?" Vance looked at the writhing display of impossible vectors. "Then what does it want?" No one answered. At 1730 they lost their first crewman. Not to death. To absence. Specialist Aaron Pike was on comms relay watch in compartment 11 with his partner, Sergeant Wilkes. The two were talking about baseball, of all things, a game Pike had never played and barely understood but loved because his grandfather had taught him the rules during power outages on Ganymede. Wilkes was telling him the infield fly rule when Pike frowned and asked, "Who's Aaron Pike?" Wilkes thought he was joking. Then Pike stood up, looked around the compartment with growing alarm, and backed away from his own reflection in the monitor glass. "Why do I know this room?" Wilkes called medical immediately, but by the time they arrived, Pike no longer recognized language in full sentences. He knew objects, functions, danger. But his autobiographical memory had been gouged out clean. His badge, his hands, his own voice meant nothing to him. Brain imaging showed neural activity patterns that pulsed in spirals in dead zones, as though sections of personal continuity had simply gone dark. Bot watched the scan in horror. "It's selective," she whispered, "not general damage. Something is stripping self-reference." Vance visited medical that evening. Pike sat restrained for his own safety, staring at his fingers as if he had found them on the floor. When Vance entered, the younger man looked up. "Are you my father?" he asked. Vance nearly said no too quickly. "Commander Elias Vance," he answered instead. "You serve on my ship." Pike tasted the words like an unfamiliar food. "Do I want to be here?" Vance looked at him for a long time. "No," he said quietly, "but you chose to be." Pike nodded as if that mattered, though it was clear he did not understand why. When Vance left the med bay, Laura was waiting in the corridor. "You should rest," the Cabri said. "So should all of us." Laura's forelimbs folded tighter. After a moment, Laura continued. "On the Halcyon, your mate spoke often of you." The old ache flared. "She wasn't my mate," Vance said. "We're not insects." The translator clicked softly as Laura recalibrated. "Your wife. She believed you would come for answers." "Did she?" "She feared you would come for revenge." Vance met his many-eyed gaze. "Do you know the difference?" Laura's voice lowered. "In the Blind Expanse, neither intention matters if the place can smell grief." That night cycle, Vance finally slept. He lasted 47 minutes. In the dream, he stood in the kitchen of the house he and Mara had kept near Tycho Basin when there was still such a thing as shore leave. Sunlight fell through the window in the exact amber color of a Martian afternoon sim. Mara stood at the counter slicing fruit, humming a tune he had not heard in years. For one impossible blissful instant, he did not remember she was dead. Then he saw that the knife never touched the fruit. It passed through, slicing the wooden board, then the counter, then her own hand, and she kept humming as blood ran upward across the ceiling. She turned toward him, smiling. "It learned your shape," she said. Orlov's voice cracked across the ship. Contacts bearing port and ventral, no transponders. They're matching our drift. Vance shoved himself from the bunk and ran. By the time he hit the bridge, the main display showed 3 vessel signatures pacing them in the fogged geometry of the expanse. Long, narrow hulls, Capri profile, old league architecture. Lore recoiled so hard his station clattered. "No," he said. "No, those are dead." Pat pulled archived records across her screen. They matched the Eidolon wing. Capri Exploration Flotilla lost 19 years ago. Mercer's jaw clenched. And now? One of the ships rolled slowly across the display. Its hull was torn open from bow to stern. Its running lights were still blinking. Then a transmission arrived. Not text. Audio. A chorus of overlapping Capri clicks and human screams fused into something that made half the bridge flinch. Embedded inside it, repeating at irregular intervals, was a single phrase in perfect Terran standard. "Come outside." Vance felt every hair rise on his arms. "Battle stations," Mercer barked. "All sections seal." The dead flotilla accelerated. There was no engine plume, no thermal wake. They simply changed position in space the way a thought changes direction. "Evasive," Vance snapped. Orlov moved instantly. The Argosy rolled and thrust, but the relative geometry slid wrong. One ghost ship appeared off starboard, then ahead, then directly beneath them. Proximity alarm screamed. Mercer locked missile solutions and hesitated. "Sir, I can fire, but I can't guarantee those contacts occupy the same coordinates twice." "Do it." The first missile spread into 6 smart submunitions and tore through the nearest signature. For a second, the image broke apart into shining fragments. Then the fragments continued moving. Hot stared in disbelief. "We're not hitting mass, we're hitting interpretation." "Again," Vance said. Mercer shifted to rail batteries. Dense tungsten slugs crossed the void. This time the lead ghost ship shuddered. A section of its impossible hull peeled away, revealing not machinery but a cavity lined with moving reflections. For a heartbeat, Vance saw the bridge of the Halcyon inside it. Mara stood there beyond cracked glass, one hand against the pane. Mercer saw it too. His firing stopped. The ghost ship surged. It struck the Argosy's port shields with a vibration that felt like a migraine injected through metal. Lights failed across 3 decks. 2 crew collapsed, seizing. Orlov screamed, grabbed her headset, and tore it off as blood trickled from one ear. Tanaka yelled from engineering, "Shield lattice destabilizing. It's not an energy hit, it's resonant feedback. They're coupling through the sensor skin." "Kill non-essential externals," Vance ordered. "We'll be half blind." "We're already blind." Panels darkened. External feeds reduced to narrow-band tactical windows and primitive LIDAR slices. Ugly. Limited. Human. The effect was immediate. The ghost contacts flickered. Not gone. But Wilker. Pat's breath caught. They need rich perception. The more fully we model them, the more surface they gain. Mercer bared his teeth. Then we stop admiring the monsters. The next exchange was brutal and close. Orlov flew mostly on inertia estimates and raw vector instinct. Mercer fired only when a contact intersected 3 low-resolution channels at once. Tanaka rerouted power by hand when automation loops began trying to reopen disabled sensors on their own. Lore crouched beside Bat, identifying Capri hull forms, while shaking badly enough to click his mandibles against each other. The ghost flotilla rammed twice more. Each impact came with hallucinations. Marines on Deck 4 reported seeing open sky where the deck should be. A medic walked through a sealed hatch because she swore it had been her childhood bedroom door. 2 gunners fired into a blank corridor. What humans kept recovering, that was the difference. They broke, then snapped back. Not cleanly, never cleanly, but enough. Mercer finally nailed the lead ghost vessel by venting superheated coolant through a maintenance spine and igniting it with point defense lasers at near contact range. The blast was less an explosion than a declaration. The contact folded inward, revealing that same cavity of reflections, and then vanished as if embarrassed by physics. The 2 remaining ghosts retreated into distortion. The bridge sagged into stunned silence. Casualty report came in hard. 6 wounded, 1 critical seizure. two with severe dissociative episodes. Pike in medical had started speaking in someone else's voice during the attack, reciting star coordinates that did not exist. Mercer wiped blood from a cut above his eyebrow. "Enemy action from dead ships in the space madness zone," he said. "I officially miss pirates." Bat did not laugh. She was staring at the combat logs, face gone pale. "Commander," she said slowly, "they weren't attacking us to destroy the ship. Then why?" She enlarged the sensor traces from each impact point. The resonance patterns formed nested spirals converging on the habitat ring, because they were probing memory architecture. Vance felt the floor tilt under him. "Can they get in?" Bat swallowed. "I think they already are." Protocol Ash had assumed symptoms would be individual, psychological, neurological, contained in skulls. By the second day, that assumption died. A corridor on Deck 3 measured 20 meters on schematics and 26 by laser rangefinder. The galley coffee machine started dispensing seawater, no matter what reservoir fed it. The medbay clock displayed a date 31 years in the future for 8 minutes, then corrected itself. Tonica ripped paneling open and found no mechanical cause because there was no mechanical cause. "The ship is picking up cognitive imprinting," he said at the emergency conference. "Localized reality drift, anchored to crew perception. We are carrying the Expanse inside our systems." That room had been converted into a low-stimulus command chamber. No windows, modest surfaces. Analog backup boards mounted beside digital displays. Paper notes taped to walls because paper did not rewrite itself as often. Vance listened while everyone looked exhausted in different ways. Orlov had started tying a red thread around her wrist each hour to count missing time. Mercer had not removed his combat armor in 14 hours. Bot looked feverishly alive, which worried Vance almost more than panic would have. Lore kept angling his body away from corners. "What's the containment option?" Vance asked. Tanaka hesitated. "There may not be one." Mercer leaned forward. "There is always one. Not one we'll like. If the Expanse is using up server cognition as a substrate, then the ship is only infected because we are aboard to preserve it." Pat finished the thought. "The more minds, the more footholds." Silence deepened. No one wanted to say it. Reduce the crew. Reduce the observations. Reduce the human presence that had made them resilient enough to get this far. Vance looked around the room. "Alternatives." Bat rubbed her eyes. "I've been analyzing the future packet beacons and the Capri ghost resonance. There's a pattern underneath all of it. Not language exactly, more like a topological grammar. The Expanse isn't random, and it isn't just predatory. It's trying to model us by forcing recursive self-reference until a mind collapses into simpler forms. Hallucinations aren't side effects, they're test structures." Lore's translator buzzed. "It asks minds to define themselves until they break." "And if a mind doesn't break?" Vance asked. Bot met his eyes. "Then it learns a stable map of that cognition." Mara's final words rang through him again. "Do not let it learn your shape." Mercer noticed the shift in his face. "You have something," the Major said. Vance did not answer immediately, because the truth had been waiting for him since Luna, sealed under level black classification. He had hoped he would not need it. Had hoped there would be some cleaner explanation, some tactical problem to solve with steel and nerve. Mara Vance appeared in frozen frame on the center display, gaunt and hollow-eyed, recorded during her final day aboard the Halcyon before total mission collapse. Orlov stared. Mercer looked from the image to Vance in stunned understanding. Lore bowed his head. "I should have shown you this before we crossed," Vance had said. "I didn't because I believed keeping it compartmentalized protected command cohesion." "Sir," Mercer said carefully, "what is this?" Her last intact research brief. "If anyone is seeing this, containment has failed," she said. Her voice was ragged but unmistakably hers. "The Expanse is not a natural anomaly. It does not travel. It maps. Specifically, it maps sentient interiority by destabilizing spatial cognition and forcing observers to externalize self-structure. Civilizations exposed to it interpreted the process as madness, because identity erosion is one output. But that is not the primary function. Static cracked through the recording. Behind Mara, the Halcyon lab walls seemed to bend like warm wax. The primary function is translation. The Expanse learns minds by converting memory, fear, and self-modeling into navigable geometry. Once a species is mapped, the region can predict it, influence it, perhaps enter inhabited space through conceptual resonance. Her eyes shifted off-camera, terrified. It wants humanity because our cognition remains coherent, under contradiction longer than others. We do not shatter where others shatter. We adapt. That makes us legible at higher resolution. The image stuttered. Blood ran from one of Mara's nostrils. She ignored it. There may be one defense, refusal of fixed self-state, deliberate instability, contradictory autobiographical reinforcement. Human trauma survivors show partial resistance because identity in such individuals is already fractured yet functional. The Expanse cannot complete a map of a mind that remains self-inconsistent without collapsing. Vance closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, everyone was staring at him. Mercer spoke first. "You knew." "I knew enough." Pat shook her head in disbelief. "Commander, that means your own psychological profile." "Yes," Vance said. "That's why Sloan chose me." You let them sit with that. Then he told the rest. After Mara's death, the Terran Compact had run every preserved scrap of Halcyon data through black labs and military psych divisions. Brains trained by loss, war, abuse, grief, survival. Not healthier minds, harder ones. Humanity had not sent the Argosy because humans were fearless. They had sent it because humans were already cracked in ways the Expanse could not easily read. Orloff looked suddenly ill. "So we're not the clean answer. We're damaged enough to survive the poison." "Yes," Vance said. Lore made a dry scraping sound. "This is a very human strategy." Mercer gave a grim nod. "Use the thing that should have killed you as armor." Pat was already moving past horror into problem solving. If Mara was right, then resisting mapping requires us to remain cognitively unstable by choice. That's ugly, but it gives us a lever. We don't need to understand the Expanse on its terms. We need to deny it a complete picture while forcing it to reveal its structure. Tanaka frowned. "How?" Vance looked at the old recording of his wife, then at the crew still alive because they kept functioning while wounded. Then Mercer smiled for the first time since crossing. "That," he said, "sounds like a human answer." The plan that followed was desperate, dangerous, and insane enough to work. They would stop trying to maintain a single authoritative navigation model. Instead, they would split the ship's mapping architecture into parallel contradictory frameworks, built around human crews rotating through controlled memory variance drills. Analog boards, verbal route chains, tactile markers, subjective logs, and intentionally mismatched star fixes. The Argosy would become not one observer, but dozens of partially disagreeing ones. A minefield. Bat believed the Expanse needed consistency to finish translation. Human contradiction had slowed it. Systematic contradiction might blind it. Lore objected first. You propose to weaponize confusion while inside the confusion. Yes, Bat said. That is deranged. Mercer looked at him. Welcome to our species. Implementation started immediately. Bulkheads were marked with layered root colors that changed meaning by watch rotation. Crew carried identity cards with personal anchor statements written in their own handwriting and cross-checked by partners every 10 minutes. Navigation abandoned elegant solutions and shifted to brute redundancy. Orlov ran 6 simultaneous drift estimates and treated overlap, not certainty, as truth. Tanaka physically disconnected half the ship's self-correcting software and replaced it with manual relays. Most importantly, Vance ordered every crew member to record 3 autobiographical memories. 1 true, 1 false. 1 true, but emotionally misframed. If the Expanse was trying to define them, humanity would answer with the oldest weapon in its arsenal. Stories. Not lies for deception alone. Lies as camouflage, memory as terrain, identity as guerrilla warfare. The effect appeared 12 hours later. The hallucinations changed. Before they had been invasive and precise, seeking emotional wounds with predatory intelligence. Now they became diffuse, uncertain, contradictory. A crewman would hear his dead brother speaking in one corridor, then his dead brother with the wrong accent in the next. Wall would open into a childhood schoolyard, but the classrooms would be mirrored backwards. The attacks lost confidence. Bat tracked the change with manic focus. "It's missing locks," she said. "We're poisoning its model." Orlov, sleepless and razor-wired, managed a crooked grin. "Good. Let the bastard get lost in us." On the 3rd day, they found the core. Not because sensors detected it, because Pike did. The memory-stripped comms specialist, still mostly hollowed out, had spent hours murmuring impossible coordinates into the medbay air. Bat finally realized the coordinates were not locations in ordinary space. They were relational patterns, directions through contradictory geometry. Pike, emptied of self, had become an accidental tuning fork for the Expanse. Vance hated using him. He used him anyway. That was command. That was the price. With Pike strapped safely into a sensor cradle and Bat translating his utterances into drift vectors, the Argosy descended through folds of space no sane navigator would have attempted. At one point, they passed a field of silent derelicts embedded in what looked like frozen black glass. At another, they crossed a region where every external camera showed Earth's moon from a different century of human history. Mercer stationed Marines at every key hatch with orders no one liked and everyone understood. If crew became unrecoverable, they were to be restrained. If restraint failed, they were to be isolated. If isolation failed and a breach of command cognition was imminent, lethal force was authorized. No one argued, because by then they all knew this was not just survival. If the Expanse gained a complete map of human cognition, it might not stop at this region. It might spread along every route humans opened, into colonies, fleets, networks, dreams. Toward home. When they reached the center, the word center lost all ordinary meaning. The Blind Expanse opened into a vast structure suspended in a darkness too deep to call empty. It looked at first like a city built from shattered mirrors, then like a skeleton made of corridors, then like a web of luminous fault lines extending in impossible dimensions. The longer anyone looked, the more it reshaped around expectation. Lore dropped to all 6 limbs in horror. "The Quar of Angles," he whispered in his own language. Bot stared at the data with tears on her face. Vance felt it before he understood it. The structure around them was lined with forms that only almost became recognizable. Alien ships half remembered, streets from dead worlds, biological patterns, symbols, fragments of interior spaces. It was a museum of translated minds, stacked into navigable geometry by something old enough to turn civilizations into floor plans. And at its heart stood a shape that remained the same, no matter how one looked at it. Because it had learned that humans needed thresholds. That answer hit Vance without words. The ship alarms shrieked. Every monitor flooded with the same message in every language the Argosy carried. Enter Mercer cursed. Boarding action. No, Bat said, horrified. The door began to open. Beyond it was the kitchen from Vance's dream. Sunlight, counter, fruit. Mara standing with one hand on the table, alive and unbroken. On another monitor, Orlov saw her father who had died in a pressure collapse over Callisto. On another, Mercer saw the son he had buried before joining the Marines. Tanaka saw his sister. Lore saw the High Vladis nursery his species only visited in first memory. The Expanse had stopped guessing. It was offering surrender through longing. Mercer's voice shook for the first time. Don't look, but some did. A medic on relay watch whispered Mom and started walking toward a sealed bulkhead as if it were open ground. Two technicians froze crying at their stations. Lore made a choking sound and wrapped his forelimbs around his own head. Not a flaw, not a wrong note. Even the way she leaned when tired, slightly favoring one hip from an old climbing injury. Elias, she said. His throat closed. You came. Everything in him wanted one step. One impossible step. A lifetime of grief compressed into a single unbearable pull. Then Mara smiled with perfect tenderness and said the one thing the real Mara would never have said. You can rest now. The real Mara had never believed rest was free. Vance's grief turned to cold iron. Around the bridge, others were breaking. Orlov had blood running from her nose. Mercer's fists were white. Tanaka was breathing in little trapped gasps. The ship itself groaned as if the door had inserted straws into the hull. Bot shouted over the rising alarms. It wants voluntary integration. If someone accepts the construct, it completes the bridge. How do we shut it down? Mercer demanded. She looked at Pike's streaming nonsense coordinates and then at the contradictory navigation lattices they had built. We don't shut it down, we overload translation. Vance understood before she finished. The archive, the map, the cartographic intelligence. It was built to resolve minds into coherent geometry. Humans had come carrying war, grief, false stories, stubbornness, trauma, love, and contradiction layered so densely that even now the Expanse had to keep trying different masks. If they fed all of that back into the core at once, not as individual minds but as a collective unresolved pattern, they might force the entire structure into failure. Or they might gift it the complete human map it wanted. Mercer stepped beside the command chair. Say the word. Vance looked at his crew. At Orlov, still flying by instinct through impossible space. At Bat, brilliant and terrified. At Tanaka, holding a ship together with wrench logic and spite. At Lore, alien and broken and still here. At Pike on the med feed, a man already partly taken. Then at Mara's impossible image waiting in sunlight. This was the choice. Run now, and perhaps escape with fragments. Stay, and either blind the thing forever or open the door for it to reach humanity entire. He keyed ship-wide. "All hands, this is Commander Vance. We have reached the source. We are initiating burn-through. You know what that means." People did. Every crew member had been briefed on the absolute failure option hidden inside Protocol Ash. If Command deemed the Expanse an existential mimetic threat, the Argosy could trigger a total cognitive dump through its entangled beacon lattice, broadcasting all contradictory human pattern data gathered during the mission directly into the core, while simultaneously overloading the Pathfinder reactor. No guarantee of survival, no guarantee of success. Just one human principle made mechanical. If the dark wants your mind, make it choke on the whole species. Vance continued. "Anchor to your partners. Speak your names. Speak your falsehoods. Speak what hurts. Speak what endures. We are not giving this place a clean version of us." "My name is Nadia Orlov. I hate oceans. I was born under open sky. My name is Isaac Mercer. My son is dead. My son is watching. My name is Riku Tanaka. I never forgave my sister. I forgive her now. My name is Selena Bott. I came for discovery. I stayed for all of you." Laura's translator struggled with the cadence of Kepri morning speech. "My name is Laura of Broken Lattice. I am prey. I am witness. I remain." Vance looked at Mara's image one last time. "My name is Elias Vance. I could not save my wife." He slammed the burn-through key. The Argosy lit from within, not with fire, with memory. Every sealed note, every contradictory anchor statement, every overlapping nav model, every crew log, hallucination report, grief marker, and false autobiography surged through the beacon lattice into the door at the heart of the Expanse. The bridge displays the salt at the cascades of faces, places, wars, kitchens, graveyards, schoolyards, blood, laughter, dead children, first kisses, bad fathers, hard planets, stubborn prayers, and 1,000 tiny human refusals to become one simple thing. The door convulsed. For the first time, the Expanse seemed surprised. The archive around them shifted violently. Alien geometries ruptured. Ghost ships flashed in and out like broken memories. The impossible city folded through itself. Bat screamed ecstatic data as equations tore free of coherence. "It can't compress us. It can't stabilize the map." But the thing fought back. Of course it did. Reality lurched. Deck plating peeled upward. 2 bridge crews slammed into the ceiling. Orlov lost helm control and got it back by sheer animal ferocity. Berser held the sizing technician down with both hands while yelling identity anchors in his face. The door widened. Inside, Mara was gone. What remained was shaped without pretense. A depthless arrangement of angles and shifting voids lined with eyes that were not eyes, mouths that were not mouths, and corridors built from remembered fear. It reached toward the ship not physically, but conceptually, trying to complete the bridge through the strongest remaining vector. Vance. Because grief had brought him here. Because love had given it a shape to wear. His console flooded with intimate memories he had never recorded aloud. The day he met Mara in a university centrifuge lab, their first argument, the ultrasound image of the child they lost before term and never spoke about afterward. Every unshared chamber of him laid bare. He understood then. The Expanse had not merely observed. It had been learning him since he crossed the threshold, following the wound he carried deepest. "Commander," Bat shouted, "it's using you as a stabilizer." Mercer moved toward him, but Vance already knew there was no time. If the bridge held him, the thing would anchor through command and through the beacon broadcast into every relay link to Terran space. He made the only choice left. "Major," he said, never taking his eyes from the widening impossible door. "Take command on extraction vector." Mercer froze. "No." No. Just a soldier seeing the line and planting himself in it. You said there is always a containment option, Vance said. Mercer's face broke with understanding and fury. Damn you, Elias. Probably. He looked at Orlov. Get them out when the path opens. At Tanaka, make this ship rude enough to live. At Lore, whose nodal eyes trembled with reflected geometries, tell your people we were difficult to map. Then Vance yanked the shunt. Bulkhead slammed down around the command areas and segmented armored pedals, isolating his station from the rest of the bridge. Emergency phone lines and magnetic locks engaged. The reactor routing under his feet redirected full surge into the forward beacon spine. Mercer hammered once against the ceiling barrier. Vance met his gaze through the narrowing slit. It was enough. The barrier shut. Inside the command cocoon, the displays went white. The expanse poured into his thoughts with hurricane force. He saw versions of himself stripped and sorted. Soldier, husband, coward, survivor, widower, commander, child, killer, protector. Every role pulled apart and held before him like instruments on a surgeon's tray. A voice without sound asked the question at the center of it all. What are you? He tasted blood and answered the only way a human could. Depends who's asking. He began speaking then. Not one identity. Many. He was Elias Vance, born in Ceres dock quarters. He was Elias Vance, who had never seen Ceres because he was born on Mars. He was the man who failed his wife. He was the man his wife loved. He was a father. He was never a father. He was tired. He would never rest. He stacked truth and lie and grief and defiance until his own mind felt like a burning building, and still he kept talking. Outside the cocoon, the burn-through wave hit critical saturation. Pat found the route, not through ordinary coordinates, but through collapse gradients in the archive. The door had become unstable. For 13 seconds, a coherent exit corridor opened through the writhing geometry, back toward real space. Vector marked, Orlov shouted. Mercer took the command chair without sitting. Execute. The Argosy lurched forward, half-dragged by detonating beacon resonance, half-thrown by a reality convulsion no physicist would ever replicate on purpose. Behind them, the core of the Blind Expanse folded inward around Vance's isolated command cocoon and the overloaded forward spine. The archive screamed in every language it had ever stolen. Ghost fleets shredded into static. Whole sectors of impossible architecture imploded into black. Tanaka hit the reactor purge. For one instant, the Argosy outran its own shadow. Then the Expanse spat them out. Real stars returned. Stable. Cold. Blessedly stupid. On the bridge, half the crew collapsed, sobbing or laughing or both. Orlov kept flying because stopping felt impossible. Both stared at the receding anomaly behind them. Its once ragged boundary was now tighter, dimmer, wounded. The impossible star distortions within it had slowed. Lore whispered a Capri prayer for the dead. Mercer stood very still in front of the sealed command cocoon indicator. No life sign. No signal. Only static. They limped home over 11 hard days. 3 more crew died before they reached Terran space. Pike never regained his memory, but in his final lucid hour he took Bat's hand and asked if they had found the road. She told him yes. He smiled like a child hearing rain and slipped away. The lead quarantine fleets met them at the edge of the Perseus Drift, weapons hot and terrified. No one wanted the Argosy near a populated system until every byte of data, every neuron pattern, every hull plate had been scrubbed and tested. Mercer submitted you all of it without complaint. Then he delivered Vance's report, not the censored military version, the full one, Mars recording, the ghost flotilla, the adaptive hallucinations, the archive. burned through the fact that the Blind Expanse was a cartographic predator that had likely consumed minds for ages beyond counting, and the fact that humans had entered it, fought it, wounded it, and brought back the first stable route through its outer shell. The galaxy's reaction was immediate. Some called for sealing the region forever. Some demanded the route to be destroyed. Some accused humanity of arrogance so extreme it bordered on species-wide madness. The Keeper simply asked one question: did the humans truly return with a map? Bat answered in person before the Orion League Assembly. She stood beneath vaulted chambers built for species older than Earth's nations and placed a simple projection in the air. Not a complete map. No one could make such a thing. But a path. A navigable corridor through the outer expanse, marked by contradiction-safe intervals, human anchor protocol, low-resolution sensor discipline, and Mammonitic warfare measures. The Blind Expanse remains lethal, she told them. It remains hostile. It remains beyond full understanding. But it is no longer unknowable. An elder San diplomat, whose people had lost 2 expeditions there, stared at the projection and said quietly, "How?" Hot thought of Vance, of Mara, of Pike, of every cracked thing that still held. "Because humans can keep going after coherence fails," she said. "And because when the dark tried to define us, we answered with everything that does not fit." The route was classified at the highest level, then copied anyway. That was humanity too. In the months that followed, military theorists rewrote doctrines around cognitive warfare. Human Pathfinder schools introduced identity-anchored training and contradiction drills. League species began volunteering for mixed crews under human command in mimetic hazard zones, though most still refused to set foot near the Expanse. The wounded region became known by a new name on Terran charts: Vance's Scar. Officially, the designation was denied. Unofficially, it spread because people needed to name the place where one man had jammed his own broken heart into the gears of something ancient and made it choke. A year later, in the Memorial Hall above Mary Imbrium Fleet Command, they unveiled the names: Mara Vance. The dead of the Argosy, Commander Elias Vance. Mercer attended in dress black, shoulders heavier than before. Orlov wore the red thread from the mission around one wrist under regulation cuffs. Tanaka stood with his hands locked behind his back so no one would see them shake. Bat spoke the formal remembrance. Lord traveled from Kepu space to stand among humans in silence, which for his people meant a bond deeper than treaty. After the ceremony, Bot found Mercer staring through the dome at the moonlit curve of Earth. "You still think he's dead?" she asked. Mercer did not answer at first. Far above the world, the stars were ordinary, kindled by comparison. Finally he said, "I think if anything could survive being taken apart and still refuse to become what it was told, the dead isn't them pulled and they are." Transmission received 6 hours after they escaped the Expanse. Too corrupted to authenticate, too structured to dismiss. Most of it was noise. Distortion. No search mission was approved, not because they did not want to go, because everyone understood that some doors, once bloodied, waited with patience older than nations. Still, every few months, another listening post along the Perseus Drift reported odd beacon flickers from inside the wounded dark. Short, fragmented, never enough for a lock, just enough to keep hope from dying cleanly. And perhaps that was fitting, because humanity had not conquered the Blind Expanse. That was never the truth. They had done something more dangerous. They had survived it long enough to make it bleed. They had entered the one place in known space that reduced ancient civilizations to gibbering wreckage, and came back carrying a map, a warning, and proof that the human mind, for all its scars, contradictions, and haunted chambers, could walk where cleaner species broke. The galaxy had spent centuries believing sanity was strength. The Blind Expanse taught them otherwise. Sometimes strength was the ability to keep a hand on the wheel while memory slipped, while grief spoke in familiar voices, while reality itself tried to peel your name away and hang it in the dark. Sometimes strength was not purity. It was persistence. It was damage that learned how to stand. It was a species born on a violent world, raised by extinction pressures, tribal wars, storms, predators, famine, loss, and hope, arriving at the edge of a place no alien mind could survive and saying, with bloody teeth and shaking hands, "Move over. We'll draw the map." If this story pulled you into the dark, stay with Midnight Galaxy for the next descent into the stars. There are always more places in the universe that underestimate humanity,